Welcome to the annual Brakies. Actually, this is the first year of it, but it's going to be an annual tradition, the 2024 edition. We have 13 awards to hand out this evening. It started off as an idea of doing something like NASCAR Superlatives, turned into a mixture of awards, superlatives, and we have 13 categories to get through this evening. Shout out to that fantastic Canva template at the beginning to welcome you all in to tonight's award show. Let's start off with our first award of the night, the 2024 Drunkest Race of the Year Award, presented by Landshark Beer. Not really. I really just put it in there to make you look up the Urban Dictionary definition of Landshark. That award goes to the Nashville Superspeedway Cup race, the race that went to 5 overtimes, that race that eventual NASCAR Cup Series champion Joey Logano would go on to win to put himself into the playoffs and propel himself to his 3rd Cup Series championship, the race that nearly put Zane Smith into victory lane, which would have really caused a bit of chaos into the Cup Series playoffs, and Zane Smith ran really well over the second half of the year and pretty well into the playoffs as well. Ultimately, he did not get it done. After 5 overtimes and Joey Logano saving fuel like he was Scott Dixon, he went out the victor, ultimately got the guitar, and hey, propelled himself into a NASCAR Cup Series championship as well. Drunkest Race of the Year, Nashville Superspeedway. In the most likely to almost pull a Kevin Lepage category, it goes to none other than Corey LaJoie at the Daytona Summer Race, where he nearly pulled a Kevin Lepage and pulled out in front of the pack as they were coming into turn 1. Thankfully, that didn't happen. Todd Gilliland was able to skirt by right there, not collect the 7 car of Corey LaJoie, and cause a absolutely massive accident and really would have shaken up the point series standings at that point. Thankfully, Corey LaJoie did not get caught up in that, but this may not be the only category that Corey LaJoie is nominated in tonight. He is, however, the most likely to cause a Kevin Lepage in 2024. For best hair in 2024, I could not nominate myself. That didn't seem fair. I did not participate in NASCAR this season, so it became a tie. The voters got together, they decided, they deliberated, we went to a jury, they went into closed quarters, they came out and they said that we have a tie between Daniel Dye and Joey Logano. The problem here is they wanted to give it to Joey, but it felt like he had a bit of a performance advantage here. Maybe he was using some supplements, maybe he was using a different type of product, a different type of service than Daniel Dye was, but his hair still looks phenomenal, and we're going to give it to him. I have no problem that Joey Logano went out and got hair either. I think it's a good thing. I think the stigma should be taken off of that, because as a guy that has been gifted with good hair, I understand why guys are, insecure about it. So, hey, Joey Logano, fantastic hair. Daniel Dye, also fantastic hair. He did cut it off for the playoffs, but before that, had fantastic hair, and I'm sure we'll see that back next year. So the award goes to both of them. They're going to have to cut it down the middle. The budget did not include 2 separate awards. We only had the budget for 13 awards, not for 14. Best Burnout of 2024, easily, hands down, goes to Shane Van Gisbergen after winning the Xfinity Series race at Sonoma. He did a burnout around the entire 1.99 mile circuit, basically, and he did it chasing Austin Hill around the racetrack to the point where Austin Hill even flipped him off. Got to figure out where the display is right here. Yeah, right there. That's a middle finger. Not happy about it at all. Obviously, the two of them had a run-in at Circuit of the Americas earlier in the year, and they had to beat him here as well. Shane Van Gisbergen chased him all the way around the racetrack like it was Tom and Jerry, and I am very much here for it. The best burnout of the year. I want Shane Van Gisbergen to win a bunch of races just because his burnout celebrations are great. It's like he's in Tokyo Drift while also performing in Formula Drift at the same time and getting points for smoke, closeness, and just chasing other people around the racetrack. Always a fun time. The most ambitious move of the year. You would think that we would go with something on track, like, I don't know, Kyle Larson at Homestead when he spun himself out going for the lead, or even Tyler Reddick around the outside at Homestead winning the race. Those are ambitious moves. They worked out. There were a few other ambitious moves throughout the year that didn't work out. Corey LaJoie had a fair number of them. Justin Haley had some as well, but no, we're going off track for this, and that would be 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports suing NASCAR. It's an ambitious move. Hats off to them. I don't know how it's going to work out for them, and that lawsuit's going to go on for quite some time, but it is the most ambitious move of the season. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out for them into 2025. The best punch of the season does not go to Little Daddy Chandler Smith and his open-handed kind of knuckle sandwich punch that he gave to Cole Custer. It instead goes to Richard Stenhouse Jr. for his punch on Kyle Busch at the NASCAR Cup Series All-Star race at North Wilkesboro back in May. He waited on him the entirety of the race after Kyle put him into the wall, and then it seemed like things had cooled down and, level heads were going to prevail, and then Ricky remembered, I came down here to fight. If I don't punch him, why the heck did I stand around here the entire time? So then he cocks back and punches Kyle in the side of the head, to which Kyle had one of the funnier lines of the season. He's like, "You suck, I suck too." So just really throwing his team underneath the bus there as well. But for Ricky, he probably regretted it in the end. What was it, like a $75,000 fine? It probably felt good to punch somebody, but hey, he went to victory lane this season and Kyle Busch didn't, so he probably gets the last laugh out of it, I guess. Either way, best punch of the year goes to Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Hardest on equipment in 2024, presented by Robbie Gordon. Robbie couldn't be here tonight to present the award because he doesn't know it exists, but the hardest on equipment this year would be Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs had more mechanical failures than any other driver in the NASCAR Cup Series. This guy was constantly losing gears. He was constantly losing parts on the car, breaking everything around, put himself into the wall in the championship. Or, yeah, he wasn't in the championship race. He was in the championship race, not contending for the championship. Every single race, it seemed like, in the second half of this year, Ty Gibbs had some sort of issue. I mean, at one point, we even saw coolant and oil coming out of the exhaust pipes on his 54 car in a kablamo type of situation for the engine that we haven't seen in quite some time. It was actually really impressive. Even Steve Letarte on the NBC broadcast was like, "Man, been some time since I've seen that. Looks like chocolate milk." It does. It looks like Yoo-Hoo. Probably tastes about as good as Yoo-Hoo did as well. But for Ty Gibbs, easily the hardest on equipment this season. I'll ship the award off to the Joe Gibbs Racing boys. In the most likely to have to stand up and apologize like Ernie Irvan category, Corey LaJoie picks up his second win of the night. There was a string of races there coming into the second half of the season, Daytona, Michigan, a few others, where Corey LaJoie was just seemingly the problem every single week. He was a danger on the racetrack. Denny Hamlin was like, the guy can't get out of his own way. He put himself on his roof at Michigan, flipped himself over, which is rather impressive. And at one point, you're like, this guy's going to have to stand up and apologize to everybody else for his driving standards because they just weren't up to par. I am happy to say that after the seat switch and, the last 7 races of the season, Corey LaJoie calmed down a lot, actually performed way better than I think anybody expected, kept his name out of the news, was not a factor, and just put in really solid runs. What are his 2025 plans? Kind of remains up in the air. He talked about it on his podcast, saying that he has some opportunities to drive. He has some opportunities on the media side of the sport as well. And I'll be honest, if he wants to go into a media path and put a younger voice into the booth, a guy that has driven these cars, has driven a lot of race cars recently, and has true applicable knowledge to what's happening on the racetrack, I am very much okay. If Corey LaJoie wants to go into the booth, he could be a major asset there and could have a really long career, assuming that he's good at it. I can't remember off the top of my head if I've heard him call a race before. Maybe he's done an ARCA race on Fox. I can't actually remember. Either way, if he wants to go the media route and do maybe some commentary, totally fine with that. If he gets a quality truck ride, hey, go over there and do that as well. But driver most likely to have to stand up and apologize like he's Ernie Irvan. And if you kids don't understand that, go ahead and just Google it. Corey LaJoie. In the category of race most likely to have fans say that it was scripted, that goes to the Martinsville Spring Race. That was the Hendrick Motorsports 40th anniversary celebration race where all 4 cars had that ruby red paint scheme on them. And Hendrick Motorsports got a 1-2-3 finish with William Byron, Kyle Larson, and Chase Elliott. Alex Bowman, I believe, finished P7 or P8 that day. Fans on the internet immediately got online and were like, they cheated in this race. This race was scripted. Hendrick Motorsports is always going to win. Those cars are cheated up. They all passed tech. I don't think they were cheated up. I do think Hendrick Motorsports put more effort into that race than basically any other race on the calendar the last few years, and they really wanted to make sure that one of their cars won that race. That ultimately ended up, having a 1-2-3 finish, which of course is storybook for Hendrick Motorsports. 40 years to the date of their first ever NASCAR Cup Series win with Jeff Bodine. Yeah, I understand why people think it's scripted. The same thing like when Dale Jr. went back in 2001, won at Daytona in the summer race. People are going to say that it's scripted. Jeff Gordon winning his last race at Martinsville. Probably not scripted considering, last race in the 24 at Martinsville. Because, of course, he could not have predicted that Matt Kenseth was going to absolutely ship Joey Logano into the turn 1 wall there like he was trying to send him to Danville in one smooth pass. But, either way, fans will say that it's scripted. It was not scripted. I saw the script actually before the race, and it did not include a 1-2-3 finish. So Hendrick Motorsports went off book there. I'm sure Jim France probably came down and slapped the wrist to make sure that they stayed on script next time. Obviously, they came back in the fall, did not replicate the same amount of speed, different tires in the fall, the super soft tire in the fall. Hopefully, we bring that back. Maybe send it to Phoenix next year too. Just throwing out ideas during this awards show. In the category of have you ever? No, I've never. I realize that there's a typo on the screen right there. Finish. It comes down to Kansas. I know people are going to say Atlanta. We've never seen a 3-wide finish like that before. I understand it, but that's super speedway racing. I expect to see something like that happen on a super speedway. I wasn't that jazzed up when it happened. I'm still not really that jazzed up looking back on it. It's visually very, very cool, but it's still a super speedway race. And hey, shout out to those 3 guys for being able to run 3 wide in Atlanta. That's a really hard task, right? And not make contact with each other, all 3 of them across the line. Very cool moment for the sport, but the Kansas finish, the closest ever finish in NASCAR Cup Series history, 1/1000th of a second between Kyle Larson and Chris Buescher. Timing and scoring even scored Chris Buescher as the winner until they went back and reviewed it and looked at it and took a further look and saw that Kyle Larson was in fact the winner there. That finish will forever be one of the greatest finishes ever in NASCAR Cup Series history. And that gets the Have You Ever? No, I've Never Finish of the Year award. Not to be outdone by that, we have the Have You Ever? No, I've Never Moment of the Year. And that comes from, well, the last NASCAR Cup Series race of the season. Never have I ever seen the pace car crash into the entrance to pit road before and red flag the race because it knocked over the sand barrels. One of the more bizarre moments of the NASCAR Cup Series season. One of the more bizarre moments you're ever going to see in NASCAR, to have the pace driver, not even the honorary pace car driver, have a mistake like this where he forgot to come to pit road, tries to cut it, spins himself out essentially in a front wheel drive car, impressive, and then crashes through the barrels as well. Yeah, that's a bad look overall. Have you ever? No, I've never seen the pace car crash through the sand barrels at the entrance to pit road. In the most likely to get suspended in 2025 category, we have 2024 suspendee Connor Jones. I think that based on past trajectory, past performance, past behavior, if he is in the Cup Series next year, not the Cup Series, if he's in the Truck Series next year, I think there's a solid chance that Connor Jones finds himself getting suspended once again. In my opinion, I don't think he learned from the first suspension. Because at the Truck Series championship finale at Phoenix on Friday night, he ran into his teammate after the race, even though he spun himself out by himself underneath his teammate. That wasn't his teammate's fault. I don't think he fully learned. So if I'm going to put my money on somebody who gets suspended next year, it'll probably be Connor Jones. And then in the most forgettable 2025 silly season move, I went with Chase Briscoe because I feel like a lot of people probably forget that Chase Briscoe is headed over to Joe Gibbs Racing next year. He is moving into a marquee ride with a top tier team, and he is going to absolutely have to perform. But I feel like this was announced so long ago after Christopher Bell spilled the beans, and it kind of has flown under the radar. And, you know, Briscoe had a really good Southern 500, tried to scrape his way along in the playoffs. Ultimately, his steam ran out. I just feel like this is a pretty forgettable move, all things considered. But hey, maybe that's what he needs, and maybe that's what that 19 team needs. Fly under the radar, surprise everybody in 2025. Hey, Gibbs is letting their drivers get back on dirt as well. Maybe that'll help out with the Chase Briscoe side of things. But for me, right now, this is kind of the most forgettable 2025 signing. We'll have to wait and see sort of how 2025 silly season plays out next year. Well, 2026 silly season plays out in 2025. Either way, thank you for joining us for the first annual Brakie Awards. They'll be back in 2025 to recap what happened next season. Probably add in some more categories. None of these categories will likely stay the same next year. Maybe a few of them. I would say like 7 out of the 13 will probably stay. Are we going to have an Ernie Irvan moment? I don't know, but maybe if we have to have that next year, it'll be included as well. So let me know in the comments what you think about the awards. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitter @BrakeHard, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook @BrakeHardBlog.